Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and Dark Dry Drew here. It's Thursday, December the 6th, 2018. It's 4 p.m. New York time. That's 1 p.m. Los Angeles time, 9 p.m. London time. And if it's Sydney, Australia that you're at, you're up currently around 8 a.m. in the morning, so good morning to you. And we're welcoming you here for your second Daily Dose of Happy for the day. We are, as usual, live streaming to the Law of Attraction Changed My Life group. And I welcome back Drew for another weekly session. Drew, how you doing? I hope your week's been a good one.
Things have been going pretty well. I'm pretty much over my cold. Just have a cough that's been lingering for over a week. But
yeah, improvement is improvement. Good.
Looking at finally. So yeah.
All right. Excellent. Very good. Glad to hear that. And we're going to be talking about what makes us happy, which is a nice broad topic, as Drew pointed out to me before we got the podcast started. And he's absolutely right. It is a very broad topic. Fortunately, it covers a lot of our lives. But this is also an opportunity for people who are listening to the live stream in the Facebook group. If you're listening and you want to chime in either with a question, maybe something that you're trying to attract into your life, or just some of your own observations about the role that happiness plays in deliberate creation and being a law of attractor, that would be great too. Anything that you want to share would be wonderful, and we'll just I'll be checking the comments periodically, and we'll bring in what people type in. We'll include that as part of the show. But by all means, if you have questions, certainly include questions. We love it whenever we're helping people out. If something that you're struggling with, something that is giving you a hard time, stuff isn't showing up like you want it to, or whatever it is, feel free to ask questions, because that part's always the fun part. And So happiness, happiness is, I actually was talking about this just 20 minutes ago, literally 20 minutes ago, Drew, because I have for many years put off joining any kind of a gym. I've done like walking and biking, and I was a swing dancer for many years and so forth, but I've never done gym work since high school, really. And winters, they tend to be a little bit rough around here, so it makes it tough to get out, And I'm thinking last winter particularly was really rough, and I really need to get back into shape anyway, so I figured I'd go to a gym. So checked out a local gym just down the road from us, and they gave me a tour, had a nice chat with them. And I was chatting with a woman who had shown me the place, and she had remarked that she had been dealing with, not depression, but feeling down at times lately, and that she was a pretty positive person. And she was, I could tell, just from, the way that she carried herself in her conversation and so forth. And so we kind of got talking about, what it takes to get yourself into a happier frame of mind. And I didn't actually say the words law of attraction, but I was telling her basic concepts of law of attraction and how important happiness plays a role in, and how when you focus more on what you want and take your mind off all the negatives that are around there, you actually get into a better frame of mind. And she was, like I said, she's a very positive person. She was listening with rapt attention to all the stuff that I was telling her, and saying, yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, that's good. And then I pulled out the Wayne Dyer quote. I wasn't ready to actually say law of attraction, but I pulled out the Wayne Dyer quote that if you believe it, you will see it. And pointed out to her, as she already knew, obviously, that's the opposite from what we're used to hearing. We're used to hearing, if I'll see it when I believe it. That's the common cliche. Well, this turns it around and says, if you believe it, you will see it. And it intrigued her. And I assured her, it really does work out that way. So now my point is, not only did I help perhaps win somebody over toward the idea of what the law of attraction is and how it works, but she basically was coming back to me with stories about how happy a person she is, and how that happiness plays a major role in her life in terms of, always looking for the silver lining and the positive side and so forth. And it really struck me. That is true of somebody who has a positive orientation, right? People who have either made themselves positive, like I have over the years by pushing myself in that direction, or people who are just naturally optimistic. Everybody who is on that side of the fence, so forth, really understands and appreciates from firsthand experience just how important happiness is, and knowing how to get there is a big deal. So I guess that's my long-winded way of saying thank you for bringing up the topic, Drew, because it's a good topic. I don't remember what made you think of it last week, but it's a good topic, really good. So we aren't seeing any questions yet, so I figure let's just get into it for you and me. When you think about being happy, and this is particularly, I'm asking from the point of view of you as the comedian or the writer of comedy? Because you've talked in the past about how your comedy is dark comedy. It's on the dark side. Happiness isn't really a big part of what you write about, right? It isn't really a part of that kind of delivery. So I guess my question to you is, since that is a big part of your life, where does happiness fit into your life experience? I mean, where do you fit it in? How does that become part of who you are?
Hmm. Well,
I didn't mean to stump you right off the bat.
well, I was going to say, it's sort of like I could write a book on that to some degree. I think there's a big, the other day I was watching a YouTube video from a speaker. He's a little older than me, and he runs a channel called Charisma on Command. His name's Charlie. And he does a pretty good job. And he was at a speaking event, and so instead of being a scripted video, it was just him talking about his experience. And one of the things he brought up was that he felt like he had this sadness inside all the time. That even doing fun things all the time, there was still this sort of like sadness in there that needed to be addressed. And long story short, he went and did ayahuasca and talked to the shaman and stuff. And he learned that a lot of the things that he did as a kid for enjoyment, he stopped doing them for enjoyment. And so, for instance, I noticed this in my life. Like when I was a kid, if I wanted to just play a video game, I'd just go have fun. Mm-hmm. But then nowadays, a lot of games are objective-based.
Right.
And so it's always... At some point, I switched from doing most things I did for fun to, here's an objective. So now it's the focus is progress and objective. And so I've been realizing lately what things do I do that I enjoy, and then am I doing it merely for the enjoyment or for progress? And so even just that kind of switch has helped me in writing, because I've been working on all the screenplays. Just going instead of like, okay, instead of being, this story has to be great. This story has to be, no plot holes. It needs to work the whole way through.
Right.
To instead just sit down and treat it like a sandbox and write a scene. Even if I never use the scene, it's just fun to write it, and then having fun and getting through that becomes progress. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the ways lately that I've been like I guess it's kind of like a redo in some regards to like bringing back those childhood elements of fun in that way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, because I guess for me it was easy because I've always been like a perfectionist, and then I had like really bad OCD when I was a kid. Oh. And it took years to get over that. So now at this point, I had to take a step back from the whole, especially at, like UC Davis. Everyone there is very like progress oriented. Like they'll sacrifice basically all of their time just to make it to where they plan on going. Mm-hmm. To the point though where they're losing out on all the fun experience. So for me, it was like, I'm going to have fun all the time and go to all these concerts and things. And I'm like, this will make me have a happy life. But then, I think it was only in the past couple of days that after seeing that I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to just go do things for the sake of it being fun and enjoyable, instead of always being about towards some goal. But kind of accepting pointlessness. And I guess meditation kind of helps with that, with just kind of sitting there and not worrying about your thoughts, letting things pass, and being content with, the moment. So I guess that would be my initial response.
Isn't it interesting how over time the happiness thing becomes something that we realize we have to reintroduce into our lives? It's almost like it got away from us. When we were kids, having fun and being happy, that was just a part of being a kid. You just kind of did it. But as time goes on, through socialization, through job expectations and school expectations and all that kind of thing, it's like we erode it away. And it gets to the point where it just kind of disappears. So you actively have to take a role and say, I'm going to bring my happiness back. You have to plan happiness. You have to, set aside a time to do fun things and to feel good. Because otherwise you just get caught in that I don't know what to call it, the rat race, right? You get trapped in the rat race, and it's
Yeah,
hard. It can be
exactly.
hard to get out of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's easy to like lose focus of all that. It's like life is like wrangling a bag of kittens, and the bag of kittens, all the kittens get out and run away, and you can like you're like, oh, I caught 8 of them out of 10, and then
Right.
it's like, oh my god, I didn't realize that the other two were miles away, and so now I got to go fix that. So yeah, that's the I guess part of it is that when you are a kid, because I kind of have, for me, half my, yeah, I mean, I'm only 22, so it wasn't that long ago. So like
Hmm.
half my life was being a kid, and then half was slowly becoming an adult. So to start realizing all these things now, it's like kind of, it's been pretty odd. And then
Hmm.
trying to piece it all together, and then it's like every time I come to a new revelation of some sort, it basically reminds me that I really don't know anything. Like there is always, even if I live to 100 years old, I'm going to be like still realizing things all the time where it's like, oh my gosh, that never even occurred to me. I think that's just kind of the nature of it. Is like the whole happiness thing is if you can pull it off in the moment perpetually, and then just do your best to keep improving everything else in your life.
Right.
I think that's kind of been the mindset that I'm like trying to shift into. And it's easy to say it, right? But then it's one of those things where in practice it's like, oh well yesterday it was the first 5 hours of me and my dad getting the bows restrung. So that was half the day gone. When we went out to the store and stuff. We got to have fun in the moment because I'm like, oh, like we're out here, we're stuck. We have to just go do something. Like, how about we go get lunch or just hang out? And so
Yeah.
finding ways to turn all of those like the small moments that aren't, and then the rest of the time, then it's like, oh, well, this is fun time. Let's just let it be fun time, or
Hmm.
like this is work.
Right.
Crank it out, then switch. Making the conscious switch to fun time is something that's been hard for me. Like I had to learn, kind of like how you're saying, how learning to be. I've always been pretty optimistic, like even unrealistically optimistic, where I want to achieve more than I'm actually like capable of achieving within a given time period.
Hmm.
At least like with my current skills, but working, I guess, just continuing. Yeah, how would you say that? Just continuing. Yeah, the happiness thing does have so many layers to it. Maybe that's why no one can ever figure it out totally. Is that it's always changing because we are and everything else in the world is. It's always something like
Ch-
cell phones. We
Yep.
don't really know the effect of cell phones. I'm pretty sure cell phones have spiked depression and suicide rates. And so, yeah, yeah, happiness. Gosh. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, happiness is something that I think that we have to select. For the longest time in my life, I felt like happiness was something that happened to me. It was not. It was outside of my control. That was the way I felt about it, and that
Yeah,
I, I wasn't getting enough of it at one point, so I felt like I was being cheated. It wasn't until I was consciously made aware that it is possible to take control of my own happiness and to take control of not only of my happiness, but of whatever my emotional state is. I actually, this is the big revelation that no matter what feeling I'm experiencing, whether I'm depressed or exhilarant or somewhere in the middle, bored, optimistic, frustrated, whatever it might be, I am the one who put myself there. I am the one who selected that feeling. That was the hard revelation for me because I had so much in my life where I was not feeling good about myself, about my circumstances, about what was going on in my life. So to be faced with the prospect that I had done that to myself, that was a hard prospect to face. On the other hand, there was also the promise that goes with it. And the promise, of course, is that once you know you really do have control, to decide how you're going to react in any situation, no matter how traumatic it might be, no matter how surprising it might be, you still control your own. You decide how you're going to feel about it. You have control over
yeah,
that. And once I understood that I had that control, that was also freeing at the same time. So it was a little bit unhappy because I realized, oh, geez, I've been doing this to myself all these years. And on the other hand, it was freeing because I realized now I have a way I can climb out of it. I don't have to wait for some happy event to come along before I can feel good. I can choose to feel good right away. And I also remember my first few times trying deliberately to feel good and failing miserably because
Yeah.
I was out of the habit, and even when I knew theoretically I could move my emotional set point, as it's called, I mean, I would try to move it and I couldn't move it an inch. I couldn't move it a millimeter. It was impossible, or so I seemed. But over time, I would have more and more experiences where I realized I was moving it. And that just kind of reinforced, yeah, I really do have this power. I really do have this control. I have the ability to control, or at least I can learn it, even if I've kind of forgotten it over the years. I can relearn it. It's like it's like the bicycle joke, right? Once you learn how to ride a bicycle, it's just a question of relearning it really quickly. And the same thing is true for controlling and selecting emotions. The the part that was new was facing a situation X that would normally lead somebody to feel angry or unhappy or depressed or frustrated or something like that. And in that situation, deliberately choosing to feel good anyway. That was the real bugaboo. That was the hard one because I'm so used to it, or I was so used to it. I was so used to just feeling whatever way the situation dictated to me that I would feel.
Yeah.
But once I realized that even that was something I could change, now I started to feel empowered about how happiness could at least work. And now at that point, I became really intent on learning how to do it more frequently and how to get myself into that better feeling place whenever I wanted to. And
Yeah.
it's been an ongoing a bit of a struggle at times, and it's been a journey. It's been an ongoing exercise just to learn to do that and learn to select that and to remember just to flat out remember at any given circumstance, no matter what's going on, it's up to me how I'm going to feel. So I mean, you alluded to the fact that I've been dealing with this medical issue with my wife. It's actually her medical issue, and there were a couple of times last week that were just awful. I mean, just
Yeah.
horrendous. And I remarked on it both this morning's show and one of the shows yesterday how my passion for wanting to help my wife soared in the middle of that. I reached levels of passion that I hadn't felt in months. And it was not, I didn't have to work to get there. I mean, it was just boom, I'm there. There was like this huge determination that I had, that I was feeling, that even though at the time I could see no hope for helping her, because the original diagnosis was just horrible. But because I was experiencing that passion helped me to believe that I really could help her get past this, even though, medical science said, well, you can't get past that. I didn't believe that. The passion was actually helping me get there. So I see that as a way of saying I have learned, just by trying over and over again, I've learned to start believing I don't have to buy into whatever that programmed emotional response says it has to be. And I experienced it directly last week just by having this huge passion. Like, no, that's not the way it's going to go. I was even saying that out loud. I would say it into a mirror. No, we're not going to give in to this. We're going to beat this. We're going to overcome this. And
Yeah.
just that passion alone, I mean, I started to manifest within 2 days. My wife did too, because she wasn't doing it as passionately as I was. She was pretty knocked down by it. But nevertheless, within 2 days, we got a new diagnosis saying the old diagnosis was wrong. You know, so I mean, I can't tell you for sure that our belief system changed that, but I can't rule it out either. And I also know that from that point on, everything started to improve. So, I mean,
Okay.
the results were pretty quick. You can select your own happiness, and selecting your own happiness actually can make a difference. That's the way I see it, anyway. So after that, it just becomes a question of when are you going to do it, and under what makes you happy. I always like to start with that. What makes you happy? Because once you know what makes you happy, you can always use those as go-tos to kind of help get yourself into the mode of practicing, of feeling better, and of getting into the place you want to be in.
That is really wonderful. That has been my goal lately. Is all of what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It has been. I've been in that struggle phase of like shifting. One of the things I've been working on, I guess, kind of sounded like one of the things you're describing, a little bit different. But so I think I talked about it before, but there's a term called empath. Have you heard of that?
Sure.
So I fit most of the descriptions for empath, which is basically where if I walk into a room, well, for instance, like a week ago, my friends and I were hanging out, and we showed one of my friends this band that my other friend and I like. But it's a really intense, uncomfortable kind of band. And even though that music, I've listened to it, you know, it helps get me through depressed moments and stuff like that. So it kind of has like just this important value to me, and I enjoy the music.
Sure.
But showing it to my friend, it made him really uncomfortable, and I pick up on that. So whenever I enter a room, what everyone else in that room is feeling is what I feel. And so I only really realized that in the past year, and I still haven't really figured out how to totally handle it. Because here I am listening to a band that I love that normally makes me feel great, and then I'm feeling very odd and uncomfortable, and then I look, and my friend's very odd and uncomfortable in that moment. And so I'm like, okay, how do I shift that, you know? And so the same thing works with the with regards to happiness, where like if I'm just chilling out and then say my mom comes home and she's had a really hard day, I have to put up an emotional barrier in order to not let other people's moods or their kind of how they're feeling in that moment affect me. And that's been really odd, because that is a brand new thing. But there was like 3 occasions where I pulled it off greatly, where someone's just like, you know, where they come over to you and they just try and dump everything. And I'm totally there for people to extent, but like sometimes if I don't put up, it's kind of like putting up a shield when this dragon vomiting on you. And it's like, oh, okay, I blocked it all. Now I can talk to the dragon.
Right.
Know? But if not, it's vomited all over. And it's like, oh my God. And so that's basically, I guess I'm trying to figure out how to be able to summon that emotional barrier on command. Because where I'm at, because for me, any day that I wake up that I'm in a good mood is kind of like how my grandpa's always like, every day that I wake up's a good day. And for me, it's like, well, I don't quite feel that way. I kind of do. Like in my brain, I can say it, but it's more like every time I can like get my mood to a good state is a good day. And so now it's like trying to be able to get my mood to where I want it. Kind of like what you're saying, being able to get to that happiness it makes me wonder too, that I talked to my mom a lot about this, was there's this whole focus on happiness, but happiness is one side of a spectrum, with the other side being sadness, or depending on where you'd put it, just like no feeling at all. If that makes sense.
Sure.
So then, is the neutral point that you'd want to be most of the time, like just neutral and content with every day, or happy?
Well, I know for myself, I was in that neutral spot for the longest time. And it wasn't until quite a bit later that I realized neutral is actually negative, believe it or not. I know it sounds strange, but neutral really is negative. Because when you're in neutral, you're not in positive. And it's the way I like to liken it is, if you look at what happens in government in a legislature, when a legislature votes on a bill, it's depending on the legislature. Most legislatures allow you to vote aye or yes, no, abstain, or absent. And interesting thing about the way they count the votes: no, absent, and abstain all count as no votes. Because the way majority rule works, you have to have a majority voting yes plus 1, right? You have to have 50% plus 1 to make a majority. That's what I was trying to say. So you have to have 50% plus 1 yes votes. That means anything else is essentially a no vote. And that also means if you apply the same principle to emotions, anything that's not a positive emotion is a negative emotion. We may call it neutral. We may call it not feeling anything at all. But since it's not positive, it's really negative. It's not working in our favor.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And when I realized that was the case, then I realized, well, okay, I guess I need a new baseline. I need a new normal. And for me, normal has to feel positive. It has to feel good. So unless I'm feeling good, it's not good enough. Doesn't mean I'm always joyful all the time. Doesn't mean I'm, at the top of the scale all the time. But as long as I'm in the positive range, that's good. That means I'm feeling pretty good.
Did it take a while to get there?
Yeah, that's always the question we want to ask, isn't it? And the answer is always very frustrating. It takes what it takes. Because I always looked for why this was true. I would ask people, why does it take so long? And I usually got a runaround on it. What I've learned is the answer comes down to you. How long will you decide to take before you start regularly, frequently focusing on what you want and taking your attention off what you don't want? And there's no way for anybody else to predict that. So that's why no one can ever tell you how long it's going to take. In fact, you probably can't even tell you how long it's going to take because you don't know how long it's going to take you to start focusing the way you want to. You may intend to, you may plan to, but will you actually do it? That's the question. That's really what it comes down to.
All right.
And no one can tell you that. You might be, if there's anybody who can tell you, it's probably you. But you might not even be able to tell you because you aren't even sure, perhaps. If you are sure, then great. Bully for you. Because if you know, oh yeah, I'm going to apply it right now, then you know it's going to happen pretty quickly. Especially if you're doing it every day and you're making it part of your daily experience. Because that's the other thing that I learned. We have, and even the gurus teach this, we have so many people who tell us, spend 15 minutes of your day focusing on what you want. And things will start to change. And that's true. The thing is, 15 minutes out of your day, you got 24 hours in a day. You're sleeping about a third of them. The rest of them, you're awake. That means that 15 minutes is something like, on the order of 1/64th of your waking hour or of your waking time during the day.
Yeah.
You're contributing 1/64th of your time to what you want, and the other 63/64 to stuff you don't really care about or don't want. So will that produce a positive result? Yeah, but it might take a while because look what the odds are. I mean, you've got so much negative momentum built up, and you're trying to counter it with 15 minutes a day. So yeah, that's where I realized it's got to be more than just a one thing that you do, in the morning or in the evening or something when you're meditating for 15 or 30 minutes or whatever. It's got to be a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute commitment that you're going to break at times. It's just going to happen. But I think it's about having a mindset that says, I want to feel good all the time. And as much as I can remember to do it and as much time as I can take to focus on it. Because, there are things we have to do. We have to go work jobs. We have to, keep the house up. We have to do the shopping and so forth. And a lot of that we have to focus on with intent. So we can't spend a lot of time focusing on, what is it that I want? What makes me feel good? We don't have a lot of time perhaps to do that. On the other hand, doing things like, things around the house. I mentioned grocery shopping. Even some of the tasks that we have to do if we're doing a job, working for a company somewhere. A lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of that can be stuff where you don't have to be intently focused. Now, there are some jobs that's not going to be true. Some jobs you have to be intently focused all the time. Okay, well, then that's the way that is. But we can look for opportunities throughout our day to say, you know what, I got a minute here. I got 5 minutes here. I got 10 minutes here. I'm going to focus on something that I really want in my life. And now I'm building up beyond 15 minutes a day every time that I do that. And I'm starting to develop it as a regular habit. Because we all know how valuable it is to have the habit, right? When you have happiness as a habit, then it's easy to hold on to. The hard part is when we don't have it as a habit. Now we're trying to rebuild it every single day.
Huh. Yeah, a lot of this is new to me, so it's a process.
It's new to me too. I mean, within the last few years, there was a time where nobody was telling me this stuff, You'd ask the experts and you get answers like, well, the positive is 100 times more powerful than the negative, which is true. And so it only takes a few minutes a day. That's true. It only takes a few minutes a day. If that's all you're able or willing to put in, a few minutes a day will make a change. It will make a difference. I just wouldn't count on it being a quick change. Unless you're already a very positive person, it's probably not going to be a quick change. So if you want to move things along quickly, you got to do more than a few minutes a day. You got to make it a throughout the day commitment, as much as you can do throughout the day, for whatever periods of time that you don't have to be focusing on something else. And if you do that, you can get change happening pretty quickly.
Huh. I'm gonna keep trying to find ways to employ that. I've been trying the mirror exercises, and I've been trying the replaying the day backwards at the end of the night.
Oh, good for
Those
you.
two.
How are
I
those
haven't
working
got
out?
it. Every time I do it, I enjoy it. I just have to remember
Good.
to do it. Then that's the only challenge now. So just the fact that I've done it at all is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. The one you said about replaying the day backwards, actually, because I every night I write down what I do that day.
Mm-hmm.
Just to think, like, and I've been, because I remember when I first started doing this, because my grandma, before she passed, would always at Christmas give us a calendar. My sister and I, we each get a calendar. And then one year I was just like, you know what? Maybe I'll write down the things I do each day. It'd be kind of interesting. Because I've always had this feeling where I
Very
never
good.
feel like I'm doing enough, or that I'm succeeding in where I want to go. And my friend and I both, the only other person I met that kind of had this exact, like, we met all the same things. We're both INTJ personality.
Ah.
And so most of our problems are the exact same. And it's just like trying to overachieve and setting standards way higher than we ever, like right now I want to write, I have like 12 screenplays that I want to write. And part of me is like, how the hell am I going to do this? The other part
Yeah. Talk about
sit
overwhelm.
down, have fun, and write,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like that is intimidating, and it sounds impossible. And so trying to find like that, just to make it fun. And I think that's it, is shifting it from progress focused to just like enjoying each moment as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoying. Because that was one of the things with the difference between, two of my favorite things are the stand-up comedy and then filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that for filmmaking, I love the writing. I love actually making the film and working with other people, as long as they're all like at least somewhat positive about it and want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved the editing, and then I loved talking about it. So I'm like, I literally love every aspect of this process. But with a stand-up comedy, as much as I loved writing and performing, I didn't love waiting 3 hours in a dingy room for 5 days a week. And so I'm like, that's not the path for me.
Mm-hmm.
If that works for other people, that's cool. So then trying to, it's like you're saying, where if you do have a busy lifestyle, it's hard to like break down each of those aspects, like especially during college, and then especially when I had internships and a girlfriend. All of that was just
yeah.
There's no time for introspection, essentially. But then now the past few months, I've taken time off and visiting family and friends. I've got a job that I'll start working, I think, in January. So
good.
Things. So basically, I had a 6-month period with mostly alone time, and then with my dog, and I never anticipated all of the sort of the existential crises that would arise, but then persevering through each one leads to a new revelation of some sort. Being, all the different things I've mentioned, where it's like I just realized how it's been 22 years, and it just came to me that I should have noticed all these times,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Well, the fact that you've had that time to really introspect is a great thing to have. And you might even want to take some time to portion some of that out to focus more on the stuff that you really want, because you've got it available to you. There are people who would kill to have that much time available. So you got it. Take advantage of it. Really, really go after it. But even for somebody who's, they're working an intense job, and they're wondering, well, when can I try to work this stuff in? Almost everybody has some kind of household stuff they have to do. Lately for me, it's been everything, because my wife's been pretty much on her back most of the time. But most of the time, I'm doing the cleanup in the kitchen, and I'm doing some stuff around the house. I'm doing laundry, things like that. And all of those tasks, let's be perfectly honest, they're mindless. You don't have to think a lot about them. They're perfect. Yeah. They are perfect times I mean, for me, doing dishes is the best time for me to start meditating on what it is that I want. Because I don't have to
Yeah.
think about it. I mean, how much thought does it take to clean a dish? It just doesn't take much. So there's lots of
Yeah.
free time there that you can use, and that's what I do. Actually, it's gotten to the point now. I used to hate to do dishes. I mean, I really despised it. Now it's like a place of respite. It's like a relaxing place because now I know I can spend some time focusing on dreaming about what it is that I want. I can spend time creating my little vignettes and doing my vignettes. Have I told you about vignettes? That's something Cindy Chavez and
No.
I came up with. In the course of talking about the books of Neville Goddard, we were trying to find ways to express the way that Neville describes doing visualizing. And he has a very specific method that he uses, and he keeps emphasizing the importance of getting into the feeling of it. So his famous phrase, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled," when you're doing your visualizing. So we were trying to think, well, how do you express that? And we realized it's a vignette or like a little video, if you will, like a 10-second video that you create in your mind is a great way to do what he was talking about. So, for instance, he tells the story of a guy who, this was back in the 1950s, and it was back in the early days of Arthur Murray, the dance studio. And they have franchises all over the place. This guy was very much into it, liked it, and wanted to get his own studio. He wanted to get a franchise. Didn't have the money for it, wasn't sure how to make it all happen, but he started following what Neville suggested to do and created a little vignette in his mind, a little scene of himself shaking hands with the regional director of the company, congratulating him for taking over a franchise. And that has a positive feeling that you can tap into pretty easily. I mean, shaking hands with somebody, we all know that can feel good, especially if you're being congratulated for something, right? So that's a fairly easy one to build up. And then all you do is just replace that vignette over and over again, that little video, that 10-second video. And what's beneficial about it is, first of all, it makes it really easy to get into that feeling of the wish fulfilled, as he calls it. Second, you don't have to do a lot of inventing. Like, so often we feel like, if I want to attract, I don't know, I want to attract a new job. So we feel like we have to figure what's it going to like to be on the job, where is it going to be, and who are we going to work for, and what kind of tasks are we going to be doing, and is it going to be 5 days a week? Am I going to be working 40 hours? What's that like? How long is it going to take me to get to and from work? That's the way we usually go about creating these things. And Neville's saying, no, far too complex. Just limit it to the end result. You've gotten the job. They're shaking hands with you. Congratulations, you got the job. That's what you have to visualize. And you get excited about that, and that will attract it. Well, that's a whole lot easier. So going back to the doing the dishes thing, that's where I was coming from with this. If you're doing dishes, you can do that vignette in your head. You can just be doing the dishes and just playing that little video over and over again about being congratulated about whatever it is you're trying to attract into your life. That's why I say household chores are wonderful for this kind of thing, because it's the perfect time to focus on what you want.
I'll have to start. I've always dreaded the household stuff. I normally just like
You and me both.
last week.
Yep. Well,
But
this
I
this
like
this
that.
gives you a different way to look at it, because now you know what the worst part about household chores are? The worst part is that they're mind numbing. Well, now you got something to do with your mind, and
That's a good way.
you're gonna find it a lot more interesting now.
I think so. I need to. I'm writing it down right now. I
hmm
need to remember.
And by the way, while you're
That,
writing that, we haven't had any questions yet. I guess people have just been listening and watching. But this is not just a conversation about what makes us happy. It's also an opportunity. If you're listening to the live podcast, to the live stream anyway, if you're listening to the recorded podcast, obviously it doesn't quite work as well. But if you're listening to the live stream on the Facebook group, put in a comment and tell us what it is that you're dealing with, and we'll see if we can help you address it and figure out what the root of least resistance is for attracting what it is that you're trying to attract into your life. And hopefully this conversation is giving you some ideas along that line. But yeah, and
yeah,
I recommend it. I recommend doing that highly. I think it's really an effective way to use what's otherwise a really, really boring time doing household chores.
yeah. The reflect for me. I've always kind of spent a lot of time reflecting, or I guess another one of the aspects of that lately that I've seen is I was reflecting on something like how I got into creative stuff,
hmm
because I didn't actually really I always drew and like played toys and made noises all throughout my childhood. And I
Okay.
still pretty much kind of do that in different ways. But one of the things I realized was that a lot of the creative things that I've done, especially after ninth grade, they they were essentially ways for me to cope with existence.
Hmm. Talk about
'Cause I
what you mean
remember
by
one of the
that. I mean, what does it mean to cope with resistance? What does that phrase resonate?
uh,
What does that
cope
mean?
with, cope with existence.
Hmm.
So the fact of existing and all of that comes with that. So especially in high school, middle school, and high school, I had a lot of good times, but there was also a lot of rough stuff.
Hmm.
And so, for instance, I remember in class each day, one of the things I'd look forward to. So I was in high school. I was always able to like crank through all the work, and I'd have like a lot of downtime in class,
Okay.
especially the non-AP or honors ones.
Hmm.
And one of the things I drew this comic book about a chicken that did military work for the government.
Okay.
And I would draw it in my daily planner every single day. And even though it was just kind of a dumb, silly thing, I only just the other day realized like how important to me that was. And that was literally something I looked forward to like for that whole year, was just sitting down and drawing about chicken as we went and fought in the jungles and
I could see
destroyed.
that as a comic strip and a very funny one too. I mean, you could do a lot with that as a comic strip.
I might have to bring it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be re-updated so that now encompasses all of the new life problems I'm facing.
Does the chicken have a name?
I don't remember. I need to find it because I can't. It's got to be somewhere. If I see, and it's not like it was good drawings. It was just me having fun and
Yeah.
like just coping with the stomach problems getting worse, with my family's divorce and all the social pressure and school pressure, all of that. I just realizing like, oh my gosh, this is this wasn't me writing a story about a chicken. This was me like surviving my own life through this little chicken, and then of
Right.
course other ways too.
Sure.
I did a lot of writing and drawing. So
That's good.
yeah,
I mean, that really does sound like a good theme for a cartoon. I mean, I don't know how popular they. I imagine there's still some popularity for cartoon strips, but that would be a good one.
yeah,
I mean, I could see that being like
yeah.
like a Bloom County kind of a thing, where it becomes an opportunity for you to do commentary on whatever it is you want to comment on.
I'll probably try and bring that up again. I like that idea, so I appreciate that.
I mean, all you really need is we need a good catchy name for the character, for the chicken, for the military chicken. Chicken. Did he have like a military uniform on? I mean, how did you know he was a military chicken?
He was just a giant chicken with a machine gun, and
Ah,
he just went around and did whatever government work was needed of him. And if you know
okay.
how contractor works for the government, it's generally not fun work, but the
Hmm.
chicken had to do it. I don't
Okay.
know why. It's like maybe exploring why the chicken had to do it. You know, did he have a
Variation.
family back home? Was he depressed?
Yeah.
So exploring the chicken's mind will be the next. Yeah, I'll think on that. You'll hear more hopefully.
It's a variation on the old joke, why did the chicken cross the road? In this case, why did the chicken join the military? Or why did the chicken become a paramilitary?
Yeah, exactly. So it'll have to be a really, really deep and depressing story, and then juxtapose it against a bunch of really silly stuff. I think that's kind of my approach to most of those things. As a way,
I'm trying to think,
I know that.
maybe a name like Sergeant Chick or something like that, or Sergeant Feathers or something. I'm not sure.
I don't. I'll need to look if I gave him a name. I have no idea. I strangely forgot. Maybe it's not that strange. Maybe I just repressed most of junior high and high school.
Hmm.
But
That's common
yeah,
enough.
so I think that dredging up the past is a good way to work towards happiness. To
Sure.
figure out why you did things you did, because it's sometimes like one of the things I've noticed is that you can lose, kind of like we were saying earlier, where it's with wrangling the bag of kittens, you can like lose track of certain aspects of your life and be like, oh my gosh, like when's the last time that you do a certain thing? You might not realize it is the last time that you're doing it. There's a lot you'll ever be able to do it until it's too late, generally, where you're like, oh my gosh, we planned on doing more of that. We never did. And I think it's because I went through my room and I cleaning out the closet and stuff. And I'm like, I remember buying this book and being like, I'm going to read that. And it's been 10 years. So, the whole life is what happens while you're making other plans kind
right.
of
thing.
So fitting that in with all the happiness,
By the way, I have a name for you. Corporal Cluck.
I like that. Like that one. I think that might be it. Corporal Cluck. That might be a new name.
The Adventures of Corporal Cluck.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I really love children's books. I've always been a kid at heart. And then going back and looking at a lot of them, you can tell that the author was processing something in their own life.
Oh, sure.
Even though book, like Dr. Seuss, there was some dark humor there. And then Roald Dahl, who wrote all the BFG and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
His James and the Giant Peach was the one where I read that, and it was because once you know all this stuff, you're like, oh my god, this guy was like clearly very depressed and was having a very rough time.
Right.
And I knew that, so was I. And it was like, this book was, he wrote it for kids, but not really. Like, it's also for anyone that's going through what he went at that time.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
We aren't getting any questions, but Bronwyn said hello, so I'll have to say hello to her. Bronwyn, how you doing? And she wants to rewatch the whole thing from the beginning, so that'll be great because she came in a little bit toward the end of it. But it's funny. I mean, I'm thinking about that cartoon. I'm thinking about you doing that as like a 3 or 4 panel cartoon, maybe just a single panel, like Far Side used to be. That actually could also be very effective. But you talked about how you were depressed when you were in junior high or middle school, and how I'm thinking there are so many kids who go through that. So I imagine you come up with some sort of theme that plays out in the various panels you draw that appeals to that generation, not that generation, that age group. I imagine you could probably tap into feelings in a way that lots of kids at that age would really, really appreciate. I just have that strong feeling you could do that, especially considering what your humor background is, because you're into the dark humor. Well, that would probably play really well with that age group.
I'll have to see if I can figure that out. Yeah, I've actually been working on on designing a program for working with disabled students or students with disabilities, however you prefer it. But basically, because there's a ton of stuff that I wish I had known about disability. Where, for instance, at UC Davis, there's disability accommodations, which are literally like life-changing. I mean, and I didn't realize that until I just stumbled on it, I think, at the end of my 3rd year of college. And they're like, oh, you've got stomach problems? Well, what about if you take the test in a different building where you have access to a bathroom? Like, you don't have to do that. And it was like, oh my God, I wish I had known this all along. Yeah. And that's more of just like a technical thing, but more about the emotional skills, the coping skills, the importance of like having family and friends that are figuring out who's going to be able to help you through that disability, all of that kind of stuff. And that, of course, also has a big role with happiness as well, because people with disabilities they're at a huge disadvantage in most ways, in ways that they won't understand until they grow older, essentially. So, the chicken comic might be a good supplement. No.
I mean, I already see the intro to the video of it. It'd be something like Corporal Clark. Something that has a very, very silly superhero kind of a theme to it. That'd be perfect because you don't think of a chicken as being a superhero, so why not?
I'm going to sit down and work on that. Whenever I have a new writing project, I have to sit down and nail the vibe.
Hmm.
That's something Hollywood doesn't. Basically, the more people you add to a project, the more diluted the essence gets.
Well, that's the beauty of doing
Like,
a cartoon because you're the guy. You're it when it's a cartoon. Even if it's just single panel
yeah,
cartoons, it's you and it's nobody else.
yeah. So that's. I'm definitely gonna have to try and figure that out. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think you should do that.
I think I will. I had a few children's books that I wrote the plot ideas to. One of them was called "You Look How You Look and You Shouldn't Give a Fuck," and
Okay.
yeah, it's a story for ugly kids because
Okay.
I never felt particularly attractive. I'm not like a hideous beast, but pretty pretty average. Some people have said above average. I'm like, well, that's pushing it, but so I'm like, all right, gotta write a book for kids that feel short or ugly or
Sure.
whatever it is.
Hey, that's a
So
theme that plays well these days too. I mean, particularly since schools are paying a lot more attention to issues about bullying and inclusiveness and all that kind of thing. That could actually play very, very well.
I think the only barrier I have to get over is my inherent ultra black humor that is quite off-putting to most people. But I think that the people that understand it and understand where I come from, and the people it does reach to, which is generally people that are not doing well,
Hmm.
you know, it's
Well, that's why I think
really
this could actually work for that age group. I mean, I wouldn't do all black humor all the time, but if you can combine black humor with some silliness, I think that would play well with kids who are in their early teens. Because heck, that's the way kids who are
yeah,
in that age group talk anyway, right?
yeah,
So I don't think
yeah.
that's a barrier. I think that's actually a benefit. I think that's an asset for you. You just don't go too dark.
Yeah,
That's all. Just don't be dark all the time. That's all.
I'll have to find the sense of humor. Figuring, I guess this is something I never realized early on in comedy, but every project you have to find the sense of humor for. So like my
Mm,
friend and I, it took 2 years to write a screenplay that we're turning into a TV series.
mm.
But then each season is totally different, but we got to figure out a distinct sense of humor. And that's kind of, I think that sort of applies to more in life than what I've figured out so far.
Mm.
But really, I guess figuring out what something needs to, I don't, how would I describe that? Because that kind of makes, so like, I'm working on a screenplay right now that's like absurdist black humor. Have you seen the film Clerks?
I have not. No.
So it's a like a cult classic about guys at a gas station. But that film has been. I mean, my mom used to work at a gas station, so she said everyone else there, they all loved it, and because they related to it. And
Sure.
it was a silly thing, but they all related to it.
Hmm.
And so I want to create stuff like that that's like so silly, so absurd, but also super dark, and have people relate to it.
Hmm.
I think that is a big happiness thing is relating, feeling understood. So, what makes young people happy? I think feeling understood is probably.
What I'd recommend is don't worry too much about making it be a certain way, not off the bat anyway. Use that as something that you're going to use for shaping later on. But just start off just creating cartoons or whatever artwork that tells whatever story comes to mind. Don't worry about it being thematic over the long haul. Just start putting them together because otherwise you could talk yourself out of it.
Yeah,
You know how that works? Yeah, how you overthink something,
yeah,
right? Well, you definitely don't
that's
want to overthink. You definitely want to be putting into it just what's coming out of you. Not worrying about does this work with the last panel or is this an ongoing series that's going to play out a certain way? Am I going to send a certain message? Don't worry about that part. That'll come naturally. It'll just come out because of who you are. Just start putting the panels together. That's the important thing.
I like that. That's something I need to work on. That's been one of those progress versus fun. And
Bronwyn has a little comment for you. She says, "Follow your heart and keep smiling." That's it.
Thank you. That has been that's like theme of the year. It's been an uphill sort of figuring out each roadblock that. It's like you're going up the hill and then realizing like, oh, look at all these roadblocks, and then like you were saying earlier, oh my God, I'm the one that put these roadblocks here. You know, it's just that I was at the top of the hill and I went down the hill, and now I got to go back up. But I learned everything going down the hill on the way down, but now I need to go back up.
But isn't that a position of strength though? Because once you realize that you're the one who put the roadblocks up, then you realize, well, shoot, I put them up. I can knock them down really easily. I'm just the one who put them up. You know, I could probably even just hurdle them if I really wanted to. You know, if I find that they're tripping me, then I'll do something else to get them out of the way. But most of the time, I can just skip right by them because heck, I created them. It's not like somebody's going to hold me accountable, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's figuring that out. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So yeah,
I always enjoy it.
I mean, literally, if I were you, if I were in your shoes, I don't know how to draw. I'm a terrible artist. But if I had created this Corporal Cluck character, and I was an artist and I knew how to draw it, first thing I would do is at the next spare moment I had, I'd start drawing a panel and not worry at all what it's going to come out to, what the message is going to be or anything. You just start drawing it because the message will come to you as you're doing it. Yeah. It'll just take its own form.
That's okay.
Don't think it.
The final.
Don't think it. Just do it. Do it out of the pure joy. You talked about that earlier. You talked about how important it is to just do things out of joy. Do it out of joy. Just do it because it's fun.
And I should be at the very top of my list of advice.
Yeah. Because, well, I mean, it's not like you're going to have any trouble coming out with messages. You don't have any trouble with messages.
No.
That's been pretty obvious. Just from the short time you and I have been doing podcasts together, you have no problem coming out with messages. So that's going to come out. It's going to come out. It's going to ooze out. It's going to sneak out even when you don't intend it to come out. The last thing you have to do is worry about what the message is going to be. It's going to come.
All right, I'm going to start doing that. I like that a lot. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's a big screenplay that I've been trying to figure out for like 2 years because I guess it's one of the same things as usual as me trying to handle my own life here. But it's been intimidating because it's so big. So I just need to sit down and keep trying. Every time I've done that so far, every time I just sit down and just try writing a scene, I've only written, I think, 2 or 3 scenes for it. But they turned out like fantastic.
See?
But it's also been 2 years and I only wrote 2 scenes. So
there is nothing that will kill you faster than trying to think stuff out. Nothing will kill you faster. It will kill your enthusiasm. It will kill your energy. It will kill your idea in the long run. Because when you live in that space of back and forth long enough, it actually kills your idea. And that's the worst. So you definitely do not want to spend any energy at all, and certainly no time, on trying to figure out how to get from A to B. It's just a waste of time and energy, and you ruin ideas that way. You're much better off just diving in. And that's not what we're normally taught, is it? But I'm telling you, that's what works.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and that's going to be one of the 1,000 lessons you've taught me. So I'm excited now.
Do me a favor. Bring us a panel. Bring us something that you drew about Corporal Cluck or whatever you're going to call him for next week's show, so we can show it on the screen. Okay.
We'll see how it turns out.
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be finished. Don't worry about that. Just, show us what you got.
Okay. I'll write that down on my to-do list.
All right. So with that, then we'll just leave it on that high note, and we hope you have a good week.
Awesome. You too. I always enjoy talking and learning new things from each other,
Absolutely. I enjoy it too. Thank you for doing it. And we'll see you all of our listeners, next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
See you later, Walt.
All right.